This is Live Beats Radio, and I'm your host, Dawn Mack. And it's Tuesday. It is so good that it's not Monday. I just came back from vacation last week, guys, and I must tell you, yesterday was really tough. You know, most Mondays are tough to get up and go to work. Yesterday was real hard after having a week off, but so glad to be back on air with you guys and just kind of getting back in the swing of things, doing what I love and bringing you some of the best guests we know. And tonight we've got a great guest, and one of the reasons why this guest is so great is because she is in North Carolina, just like me, so it's always cool to talk to someone from North Carolina. And she is also an author, and I must tell you, she's written a great book that I think is one of the best books I've seen in a long time, having to do with teens and sex. You know, there's a lot of books out there, but this book, it really, I've been flipping through it, I've been reading excerpts, and it just strikes a chord within me. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my 15-year-old daughter could so get into this just because of the way she presents it. And her name is Bekah Martin, and she has served as a mentor and a counselor to children of prisoners through Child Evangelism Fellowship, as well as other branches of ministry. And today she shares her experiences of growing up with teens from around the world through her blog, the Bekah Hamrick Martin.com blog, and articles for various publications such as Focus on the Family magazine. The name of her book is The Bare Naked Truth, Dating, Waiting, and God's Purity Plan. We proudly welcome Bekah Martin. Hello, Bekah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. As I said in the intro, I was very, very excited when I found out you're from North Carolina, just because it's always cool to have someone from the same state I'm in here on the show, and a published author, no doubt, but not just any published author, one that you've written this incredible book called The Bare Naked Truth, Dating, Waiting, and God's Purity Plan. And so I guess the best place to start from is to just talk about what inspired you to write a book like this.
You know, as you read about my background in camp ministry, I also had a background in church ministry, and I found that the same questions were being presented to me from these teenagers and from my own life back in the day. I'm almost 30 now, but they were asking all the same questions, no matter if they were kids from troubled backgrounds or kids who were in church every Sunday. And I wanted to answer those questions in a way that was relevant and that would reach this generation, and that would not just present my own voice, but the voice of other authors who had experience and knowledge.
Oh, that's really great. And you know, as I mentioned in the opening, one of the things that as I was, you know, kind of thumbing through your book and looking at it, reading portions of it, that I noticed right off was how, number one, down to earth it is. Like, it really gets on a teen's level. And you really address some questions in the book that teens, you know, have that naturally would be too afraid to just come to their mom and, you know, or to an adult and go, hey, I'm curious about this. I mean, and the way you present it, it's not kind of like, it doesn't come across as being embarrassing or taboo. It's very, very interesting. I mean, it's very obvious that you've worked around a lot of teens, no doubt about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was my hope and just, you know, my heart's prayer as I wrote the book, that it would feel that way, that it would feel really relevant.
Well, now, talk a little bit about your journey, your personal journey, and kind of what led you. I know you hit on a little bit ago, but what led you to write a purity book for teens?
For me, it was the book that I would have loved to have. I think growing up in church and just having a super supportive family and a great family structure, these were still questions that I had. And in the book, I touch on just the tiniest bit, sharing that even growing up in that almost a sheltered bubble, I definitely was taken advantage of as a child, and that weighed on me as a teenager, hearing purity talks and hearing save yourself. And, you know, I was sitting up straight in my chair listening to these talks, but mentally I'm kind of cramming my fingers down my ear because I didn't feel pure, and I didn't feel good or worthy. And God just really had to, over the years, heal that inside of me. And so I wanted to not only address those girls who maybe have waited to this point or are from that sheltered bubble, but also address the girls who have not made great decisions or who never had the chance to wait, but instead that decision was made for them. And I wanted to give them hope that God is, without maybe, I don't know what the word would be, but without defiling the girls who maybe are sheltered. I also wanted to give these other girls hope and the realization that God is bigger than that and that there is healing. And at this point in my life, I'm so grateful for that as well.
Well, one of the things that, comes to mind as I've kind of, perused your book and listening to you talk here is I think about those teen girls and even teen boys out there, but girls in particular who have actually, given up their virginity too soon. They didn't wait for marriage. And kind of in hindsight, they're looking back on it now going, gosh, I should have waited. And would you say that your book, even though, that aspect has kind of gone too soon, so to speak, would you say that your book would be a good book for someone, to read after the fact?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I wrote the book with the realization that I think it's 47% of girls through the age of 18 are not virgins. And I wanted to write for those girls as well, and like I said, just to give them hope and the realization that it's never too late to start making good decisions for yourself and for your future.
Definitely. Well, that was kind of the takeaways I got, was that this definitely could show, someone who had, lost their purity, so to speak, that they, all hope was not lost, that there's always that opportunity to, to better yourself, as you said, and just be the best you can be, not just in your own eyes, but in God's eyes, and doing what God would have you do, because, we're all born sinners, so we're all born to make mistakes. And I think part of our journey here is that we're always learning these life lessons that, that we have to learn in order to get to where God wants us to be. So, I think this book, in a way, is kind of a great message of hope for those who didn't wait,
Yes, that's definitely what I'm hearing back, and that was, like I said, my prayer as I was writing the book and as I was doing the interviews and the research, and that was my heart. But it's so good to hear back from girls who say, this and this have happened, or I've made these decisions, but I want you to know that this has really encouraged me to just seek heart healing for why I've made these decisions so that I can maybe make better decisions in the future. And that's been so encouraging to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, throughout your book, you share testimonies and struggles and lessons from various people. And what insights did you gain from their stories?
One of my favorite things, and I think it's been a theme in my life, is just that God is not beyond redeeming anything. And it was just so powerful to hear from people who were from every end of the spectrum, from waiting to not waiting to everything in between. And, Sarah Markley shared in the book, she shared about getting married just to have sex, and just kind of what the purity mindset from her church had done to her mind, although that was not the intent of those who shared with her. That was the message she got, was that I'm going to get married just so I can have sex. But her story was just so powerful on the in-between, because she felt like she could do everything that led up to the actual act. And just her story and just where God brought her through that, and even she talks about having an affair later on, and she felt like that was based on just allowing herself to go to that point emotionally with her fiancé so many times. It's just that it had kind of pushed her to that edge of being on, as we would say, being edgy. And that led to problems later on. And I want girls to see that you don't have to, if you've made those decisions, you don't have to be led in that direction as long as you get the help that you need. You know, I don't ever want a girl to read this book and to think, well, I'm hopeless.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, as you were growing up as a teenager, what's one thing that you wish someone would have told you along these lines?
It goes back a little bit and touches on what I talked about earlier about, you know, there's a contributor in the book, and she says, your purity is not your worth. And I always come back to that because for me, and that's Madison who shared that, I definitely felt like I had lost some of my worth, not from decisions that I had made, but that somehow I just wasn't, you know, worth much, and my self-esteem was very low, and God redeemed that. And so that's a big part of that for me. That's what I really, really wish I had known.
Yeah. Now, and along those lines, you know, you talked about that, and one of the chapters in your book that I've probably read more of than anything is it's entitled "I Need a Guy to Help Me Feel Complete." And you know, when I kind of first started reading this, I'm thinking to myself, not just girls, but there are many women that kind of have that whole premise about them that they think, you know, if I don't have a guy in my life, I'm nobody. You know, I've got to have that guy to not only feel complete, but it's going to define my worth. And you know, and I've had friends that have gone through this, and I've said to them, look, a guy does not define who you are. And just to a girl, a teenage girl who, you know, thinks that she's got to have a boyfriend because all of her friends do, having the boyfriend is not going to define her. In popular circles, it may make her popular, but it's not going to define her as a person. And so what would you, you know, how would you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that is such an important thing that I think if a lot of teenage girls could kind of grasp that, it may, you know, help them in their ability to stay pure till marriage.
I think this is not always the issue, but I've seen so many times how, you know, dads are so important in their daughters' lives. And for a daughter who maybe feels that her dad is emotionally absent or even physically gone, that's something that's very difficult to overcome. And, you know, I think that these girls can either come from that situation or, like you said, it could be a popularity issue, kind of like a status symbol to have a boyfriend. And I just encourage girls to, if you don't have a dad in your life, and I have in my book a chart that shares what a safe person looks like and what an unsafe person looks like. So to find a safe person, you know, maybe somebody who's already a part of a family. Maybe you have a Christian friend whose dad is a good role model, and you can kind of be adopted into that mentality. To find that, or if the issue is popularity, just to examine your own heart and really to just find your worth in God, because I think the sooner that you're able to reach that place in your heart, the sooner you're going to be more confident in who you are, and you're not going to be shaken. You're going to be able to do anything that God calls you to do if you can just begin to address that inside of you. I think all of these are inside issues and not behavioral issues. So if we address the behaviors and what's going on, those behaviors might change a little bit. But I really believe in God reaching into our hearts and changing them for the better.
Definitely. And, you know, you really touched on something there that struck a chord within me because when I was a junior in high school, my parents split up. And my dad, although he was, you know, still in the area and he was still in my life, it was a completely different dynamic of him being in the home every day when my parents, because he left. And I just remember, you know, graduating from high school, and I had a boyfriend my whole senior year of high school. And I was still a virgin, by the way. But I just remember, you know, we graduated, and there was just something about, you know, graduating from high school that I just had this rule, you know, it was like, I'm going to save myself. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to lose my virginity in high school because what if I get pregnant? I don't want to be pregnant in high school. And, that was kind of the mindset, but I think a lot of it had to do with what that chapter talks about because, my dad was living elsewhere, and he had engaged in a new relationship, and, and it was just a very tumultuous time for me. And for me, I had that mindset that, I've got to have a guy in my life because I need that security. And my boyfriend at the time, we had been together for well over a year, so that was my security. He was kind of that replacement of giving me that, my dad kind of stripped from me when he left. So, it is you make a lot of sense when you say that because I can certainly identify with that period in my life that really kind of defined me in terms of what was going on at that time.
I just, my heart hurts for you, but I'm so impressed, that even though maybe you knew what you wanted for yourself, and I'm so impressed by that, and I hope that so many girls will see what they want for themselves. It can be almost a selfish decision initially to choose to wait because you're making a good decision for your future.
You definitely are, and with all the pressure that's out there today, I've got 2 daughters, and I've got a son sandwiched in between. And my oldest daughter, she lost her virginity and, kind of in high school. And my youngest daughter and my son both, they still have theirs. My youngest daughter, if you were to talk to her today, she would say, I'm saving myself to marry. I don't need the purity ring. I don't need, the defining jewelry to say, hey, I'm saving myself. I just know within I'm doing that. And she's the kind of girl, I believe her. I mean, I just think that she will. And, but, the peer pressure of today, I think, puts a lot of pressure on kids. And I think the more independent and the more confident that teens are, that does help, I think, in their ability to be able to save themselves till marriage. And it helps them stay true to themselves, too.
It definitely does. And I was telling a group last Sunday as well that it is going to make you different to make this decision for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with making this decision. Obviously, I wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
I think it's smart for you to do this. But you also can realize that you don't have to make it a main topic of conversation all the time. You don't have to be that person who's standing on the lunch table and saying, you're not getting any of this,
Yeah.
But I think if you know inside of yourself, Daniel purposed in his heart that he wasn't going to defile himself. And that was, a totally different ritualistic thing from the Old Testament. But I love that he purposed in his heart. And I think if you wait until that moment of temptation and you haven't made up your mind and you don't have the accountability and somebody just mentoring you and loving on you and having that relationship, ideally a parent or two, then you're kind of setting yourself up to waver in that. And so I just encourage people to have those safeguards.
Yeah. And one of the things, with the world being the way it is today, society being the way it is, and society being so liberal and carefree and anything goes, I think of young girls, especially when you see all these celebrities on television and they're real thin and, they've got all this, beauty about them, and it's pretty much manufactured kind of thing. And I think that's so hard for teen girls because not only are they having to kind of live up to that expectation of what they think, in their minds they think that's what society wants, but also, when it comes to dating and waiting, and the world today views women as sexualized objects anyway. So how as a parent, do you convey to your daughter how do we teach them that we're so much more than what they're seeing out there in magazines and on television?
When I hear the word teach, I kind of see somebody sitting at a blackboard, and someone's listening to it. I just, and all I can go on is what I've seen in the past 10 years with the different teenagers that I've worked with. And when I see a mom who respects herself and is making good decisions for herself and getting healing for maybe the unhealthy habits that she has, I see daughters following suit. And that's what I just encourage you to do. I mean, you can pressure your daughter all day long and talk to her, but if she doesn't sense just feeling cared about and loved, and if she doesn't, and I'm not saying that every girl who makes bad decisions doesn't feel loved. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
But I think you're increasing your chances of reaching her heart if you're able to get healing for yourself, if you're seeing somebody who can help you with your unhealthy decisions, and if you're just spending time with her and loving on her and having open, honest discussions, and that takes time. I mean, you know, it's hard to find time this day and age, but I can tell you, at least from my own life, that's the most powerful thing that my parents did as I got into my older teens. They began to realize, hey, you know, we think we're kind of losing her a little bit here. We just need to care about her and to spend time with her, and it made such a huge difference for me.
And on that note, you know, what are some practical steps that girls can apply to their everyday lives to remain pure, especially in today's world, you know, in which we live, where there's so much pressure coming from all sides?
You know, I'm going to reinforce kind of what I already said a few minutes ago, and that is find somebody who supports you. You know, these girls that I hang out with and spend time with in camp ministry and stuff, their parents, you know, they're absent. And so I'm talking to any girl who might happen to hear this, or if you think about a girl in your life, maybe you don't have a daughter, or maybe one of your daughter's friends, they just need that positive role model, but also that person to love on them and to hold them accountable and to say, hey, you know, how is this going? In just a very loving way. So I think they need that backup and that mentorship. I also want to just restate that purposing in your heart beforehand thing. I can't say that enough. I think that really saw me through so many situations where I just, like you said, your daughter saying, you know, this is just what I'm going to do. This is what I've decided. And just remembering that it's such a great decision for yourself. And those are really two of the biggest things that I can possibly think of. And, you know, a third thing would be that I really hope that this book will be a resource for groups, that this will be awesome open discussion, small groups, large groups, whatever. And I'm going to be leading a group study on my page just where people can connect with me starting in September. And so I hope people will join me for that. It'll be online, and we'll be connecting in person. And so I would love to be, as much as I can be, just that person who can help you find the right person in your life to really reinforce that for you.
I think that is so key. I mean, you know, parents, I think sometimes we kind of get in our own way when it comes to our kids, because naturally we want to protect them from everything, you know. And as I'm listening to you, one of the things that kind of comes to my mind is, and this will be helpful for me even, is what are some ways that parents or I can actually get involved without, you know, invading my daughter's privacy, you know, or scaring her away from the topic. I mean, she's pretty open and she talks about any and everything. But, you know, I know there have been times when we've kind of touched on this and she's like, Mom, you know, she just shudders with total embarrassment. And that's why I was asking you earlier, would this be appropriate to let her read the book? I mean, I think instead of me sitting down with her and going through it, I mean, I could, but I think she would probably get more out of it if she could just read it and then, like, sit and talk with me,
right?
Because she wouldn't feel like it was invasive by me saying, okay, we're going to come and sit down and have a lesson about lie number 1 kind of thing, you know. So what are some good suggestions that you have along these lines?
I think, you know, I love that you are at least able to, she may be saying, Mom, but, you know, she's going to remember that you cared enough to at least broach the topic, even if you're not harping on it. So I think that's a great start. You know, my hope is that if she's in church youth group, you know, that at least somebody is encouraging that youth group, those youth pastors, to really be a mentor for her as well. And so that's part of your role, I think, as a parent, to make sure she's kind of getting that from somewhere. And like I said before, I really think the biggest thing is just spending time with her, that she feels like that door is open, and that even if it's an awkward question, you know, she can come to you. And obviously, leaving the book in a strategic place never hurt.
There you go.
Under the pillow or on the nightstand.
Yeah, you know, and of course when we're off air, I'm going to go in there and say, okay, Hannah, her name is Hannah, and I'm going to say, look, take a look at this book, and she's going to read the title and go, what is this? I could just hear her now. But I'm saying, no, read the little subtitle, and then she'll see the word God, and she'll relax. But, you know, it's like, it's okay. It really is not what you think.
Exactly.
I'll freak her out a little bit. But before we let you go, I wanted to ask you real quick. I know that coming up on June the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern, you were going to be doing a live Facebook author chat where you'll actually be answering questions from teens and parents alike, and talk a little bit about that so that listeners, you know, can plan to check that out.
I'm super excited about it. We'll be doing a little bit of behind the scenes and how the book came about, and we'll be, like you said, answering questions, and we'll have some trivia that even if you haven't read the book, you should be able to answer just from looking at the website. And also I'll be giving away a $150 Visa card just to kind of help spread the word about the book, and some other little prizes here and there. So I hope you can join us. It'll be on Facebook. You can follow the link on my website, thebarenakedbook.com or BekahHamrickMartin.com. It'll take you to the same place. And I hope you can join us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be awesome. And one last question before I let you go. I was curious, you know, as we've been talking, as you were growing up, and, you know, and even maybe before you made the decision to remain pure for your husband, what was the biggest misconception you had about sex?
Oh, gosh. You had to throw that one out there.
Was there a single misconception? I guess maybe not, because, you know, teens, I'm sure there are plenty. And I love how you've outlined so many in the book, and you call them lie number 1 and lie number 2. I mean, I love that, because that is so true. You know, even though these are lies that either we tell ourselves or we hear to make ourselves justify whatever, but it was, you know, what do you think for you was kind of the biggest misconception?
I think probably the biggest one would just be that it's such a casual thing. You know, I didn't realize just how much it really does chemically, physiologically bond you to a person. And I'm just amazed by that connection between my husband and I. We've been married almost 6 years. And I just can't imagine just having had that with, you know, just tons of people. And so I'm so grateful that I was able to keep that pretty much for him. So
yeah, and you know, and that today, unfortunately, is such a rare thing. Is that, you know, teens actually saving themselves for marriage, but you know, unlike in my generation when I grew up, that was kind of a hit and miss thing. But I'm finding now more and more, you know, especially in my daughter's circle of friends, and, you know, in our church, and we have a huge youth group, and there's so many kids that really are on the same page on this topic. I mean, they are all like-minded when it comes to sex before marriage. They are very ingrained in their beliefs and are just so determined to stay pure until they're married. And that's highly encouraging, especially in this age we live in, where there's so much that they're up against day in, day out between school and peer pressure and from coming from all sides of the spectrum. It's highly encouraging and a little bit unusual because, you know, ironically, you wouldn't think in this day and time that you would have kids that would have that mindset, but it's very refreshing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Very much so. Well, Bekah, this has been awesome, just a wonderful conversation, and I love the fact that you've written a book about this, because even though there's a lot of books on this topic out there, I love the down-to-earth nature, the way it, you know, and my 15-year-old could pick it up and read it, and she could certainly get into it because of the fact that it sounds like a friend's talking to her age, you know, that has all the answers. It's awesome. So the book is The Bare Naked Truth, Dating, Waiting, and God's Purity Plan. And if you want to follow Bekah is Bekah H. Martin. You can also go to her website, Bekah Hamrick Martin, and just check her out. You will love it. Thank you so much for being our special guest today.
I loved it. Thank you.
Have a great evening and take care, and we'd love to have you back anytime with any new projects that you have coming out.
Thank you so much. I'll be remembering that. You have a great evening, too.
All right. Thank you, and God bless.
All right.
Bye-bye. We've been chatting with Bekah Martin, the author of North Carolinian, fell in North Carolinian. I love throwing that in there. I forgot to ask her if she's a Tar Heels fan, by the way. But needless to say, she is the author, again, of The Bare Naked Truth, Dating, Waiting, and God's Purity Plan. In case you didn't catch it, she will be doing a Facebook author chat on June the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you go to her website, Bekah, and that's Bekah, HamrickMartin.com, she's got a link to her Facebook page with all the information for the Facebook chat. And if you're a parent like me and you struggle with how to talk to your children about sex, especially your daughter, or you've got a daughter that is hard to approach about this topic, I'm telling you, get Bekah's book. I have a copy of it in my hand. It is a great book. What I've read is just phenomenal. It is down to earth, but yet it's funny. She's sarcastic. I mean, she's just presented this topic in such a way that I'm telling you, your teenager will not be embarrassed. Your teenager will be laughing, but yet taking to heart what she's written. So, God bless her for putting this, on her heart and to get this out there. I think this is a great reference tool for parents. And so, check it out. And she's published under Zondervan, so you can pick it up just about in any bookstore. And so we want to thank her again for being our special guest this evening. And so that is going to wrap our show, folks. We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. If you're brand new to our program, thank you for tuning in. We're so glad to have you here and hope that you will be back again. And let's see, when are we going to be back on air? Gosh, it seems like we've been off forever. We are actually going to be back on air next week. So we're going to be off for a few days, but we hope that you enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope that you've enjoyed our show this evening. So with that, I will say good night. God bless. Take care, and we'll see you again real soon. Good night, all.